This page contains language that's for adults and contains adult content. It's not suitable for anyone under the age of 18 and may not be suitable for all adults. Listen at your own discretion. Welcome to the podcast. This one's going to be a little bit different. Yesterday I was interviewed by It's Doomsday podcast. Old Jester had lots of questions about leadership in an apocalypse, and we also had another guy on there. It was Big Daddy Prep. Al, real nice guy. A lot of shout out to each of these guys. I'm going to leave a link someplace for you to follow them, and hopefully you will. I really like his podcast, and I actually share it with my Patreons. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Welcome, everybody, to It's Doomsday podcast. Today is December 4th, 2022. Time is 7:04 p.m., and joining me, as always, is Al, Big Daddy Prep. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm better, Jester. I'm amongst the living. I didn't think I was going to be earlier this week, but the flu did not get me, so I'm still here, still alive, ready to go.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear you kicked the flu in the ass. That is good to hear. And, guys, tonight's topic is leadership in the apocalypse, and we have a special guest to come in to talk to us about apocalypse leadership, and that is the local prepper. What's up, local prepper? How you doing?
Just another day, my friend. I'm doing super. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great. We don't get to have a third person into the show all that often, so I always get really excited for these. So I think maybe we should start with why we pulled you in for this. Your background in leadership, if you want to give the listeners a little bit of that.
My background's actually pretty simple. I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps, most of the time as some form of infantryman in different military occupational specialties. Spent a lot of time, finding, leading, recruiting, interfacing with young men and women who needed guidance in their lives, and I just happened to be in an occupational field that allowed me to do that. And then, like I said, I did that for about 20 years. And then after that, I went into government contracting with the Department of Defense and then actually ended up doing a lot of I wouldn't say counseling, but I would say guidance for Marines that were exiting service and, basically guys with PTSD and things of that nature. It also doesn't hurt that I've got 6 kids and 15 grandchildren, so I know a little bit about the human spirit.
I had no idea you had 6 kids and all those grandchildren. I don't know how you keep up with that. Wow.
I don't remember any of their names.
Jeez.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say to you, thank you for your service to the country, because some of my best friends and friends that I've dealt with my entire life have been Marines. So believe me, you're amongst a friend here. I love the Marines. That's where I would have gone if I'd gone to military myself. Also, on top of that, let me say this: having 6 kids, you need an award for that too on your own. I give you that much. So thank you for your service, and thank you for raising 6 kids, and that's a big thing nowadays.
Cool.
Yes, absolutely. So Al and I have spoke before on the show about selecting people within your circle and what kind of people you'd want to have around you in a shit hits the fan apocalyptic situation. Now, one thing that it never presented to me was having that strong leadership capability. I mean, it's there in the back of my mind, but I know that I'm going to be in charge of my group at my house if shit really breaks bad. But local prepper, what qualities would you look for in selecting a leader, and what would the vetting process like that? What would that look like?
As far as looking for somebody who's a leader, leaders have most leaders have common traits. They normally have a higher than average intelligence. They normally have very strong self-confidence. They are determined people. They have integrity, which I always believe is the highest level. And they have social skills. They're social. They have a social ability rating, but they have very good interpersonal skills, even if they're practiced, which is what I had to do because I was not a very social person coming up through the military. And then what was the other half of what you were talking about?
I was wanting to know about the vetting process. Like, how would you vet somebody for a leadership position? Because this isn't like, going to be the manager at Walmart. This is a lawless society where there's no rules, there's no regulation, and shit's breaking bad all around you.
I gotcha. Well, I mean, you would really have to look at the person as a whole. You can never truly know somebody, no matter how long you work with them. But I mean, if we're talking about apocalyptic type stuff, you really just have to. I would say the first step in the vetting process is put the guy to work and see if he'll do what you've asked him to do. Because if he's not willing to follow, then he's definitely not willing to lead. And if you do put him in a position of leadership, he will fail you. He will cause more problems than he's worth.
I 100% agree with that because I spent not 2 decades working in the prison system. And as I rose through the ranks, those that were the best supervisors, those were the best leaders, were the best followers too in the beginning. They had to be willing to cut their teeth at the bottom to get to the top. A lot of people that made it to the top that didn't cut their teeth the right way, when they got there, they didn't respect the position, or they didn't respect the people that were under them. There's a certain amount of relationship that you have to have with those that are on your subordinates if you're going to be a supervisor or in any kind of leadership type position.
To caveat on what Al just said, he worked in the prison system, so he knows this to be true. It's if you're talking about apocalyptic type stuff, you really would be operating in a very similar environment that we find in our prison systems. And the other side of what Al was talking about is that those people underneath that inexperienced or unrespected leader, they would never follow him. They would probably do everything in their power to get rid of him.
100% true.
And that's a whole other side of this, having somebody in the leadership position that not everybody's trying to kill off too. That was something I didn't even think about.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, there are some scrupulous people in the world, and it's I've unfortunately had to deal with a few of them. But these people that don't have their moral values, and they never learned what ethics were. And their moral values are so askew from what's acceptable in a society of people who just want to be free and not be taken advantage of. They at every moment of their life are constantly trying to figure out how they can get something from you that is not theirs. That's just the way their minds work. So, putting somebody into a leadership position like that, he's probably 95% fail. Are you looking to save money on prepper supplies? You should be taking advantage of multiple deals that I've set up with several different vendors. I'll leave a link below. Take a look at that. Dig around. If you need something, there it is.
They always said that 90% of the problems are caused by 10%, and 10% of the people cause 90% of the problems. And it's usually the truth. I mean, most people want to do the right thing, but there's always that certain percentage of people that don't. They're going to be a constant problem. They're going to bring down all the problems to you. It's a fact.
Oh yeah. When I was coming up in the Marine Corps in the very beginning, I talked to some of my senior leadership, and back in those days, it was pretty much just shut up and get your work done. But from time to time, you'd have conversations with some of these guys that had been around, and one of them was one of my very first platoon sergeants, and he told me that, basically, because we always had our dirt bags, but he called it 10-80-10, and I've kind of stuck to that through my time in the military. I think society is very similar to it, and his idea was that basically in society, wherever you go, you're going to have 10% of the people that are going to be these stellar performers. They're going to get the job done all the time. They're going to be dependable and loyal people. And then you're going to have 80% of the people that just want to get along to go along, and they just want to have happy lives and not really have lots of responsibility. And then you're going to have that bottom 10% these are going to be the people that will try and take everything from you anytime they can. They'll take advantage of you. They're the kind of people that you don't trust to, go through somebody's pocketbook or even to even help you and on a remote task. So 10-80-10 has always worked for me.
Gotcha. Very good to know. Very interesting. And I have always had this picture in my mind. It's the wolf of the group is going to be the one that takes over. The wolf or the sheepdog. You're going to have this two kinds of leadership. One guy that's the sheep or the sheepdog that wants to watch over the sheep, take care of them, make sure nothing bad happens to them. And then I feel you're going to have people in these apocalyptic leadership that are going to be these wolves that are going to come in there, they're going to rise to the top, and they're not going to give a shit about anybody else, and they're going to step on everybody to maintain and keep that position. And I would think in certain circumstances that would be good because you're going to do what needs to be done for the greater good. However, at the same time, when you're talking apocalyptic situations, when you're talking rationing food, rationing ammo, being fair about issuing out the security details, and just all these extra things that need to be done, I feel like a lot of people are going to break and they're going to put poor people into these leadership positions.
Yeah, I mean that's possible. That's possible. When I think about someone who may be placed into a leadership position, not somebody who's like the head of a household, and some of it can apply. But there's a couple of different types of leadership that psychologists have they like to define things for us, but it's very, very human. And one of the things that I look at is that if you watch any one of these TV shows about the end of the world and somebody who's in charge and whether they're good or they're bad, and I hate to say it, but right up there with the The Walking Dead. You had two different completely polar opposite types of leaderships. You had old Rick Grimes, and he was the guy, he didn't want to be the leader. He was just trying to do the right thing. And then people basically said, hey, this guy's got his stuff together. We're just going to follow him. And then later on in the series, you got what's the guy with the baseball bat with the ball wire on it?
I've never watched The Walking Dead. I've never watched it.
Neither have I.
Anyway, someone who's listening to this is going to know what I'm talking about. And they run into him in like season 1000 or whatever. This thing went on for like 12, 13, 14, 15 years. But anyway, and he was the leader that everybody followed, these were like scavengers. These were like the people that you're talking about. Okay. He didn't have any problem with putting people they'd find on their, matter of fact, what he would do was they would find a group of people and they would bring them all in and scare the hell out of them, put them on their knees and it's like, one of you were going to die today. And he would purposely bash one of their brains in so that the other four that they found knew that he was serious, unfortunately leaders like that don't exist. They only exist. They only continue to maintain their position, which is actually their goal, by not threat of violence, but violence. And the only people that will follow them are the people who like to live in a violent world. Everybody else will flee from this person. And then the other one, like the old Rick Grimes, the good guy, he's what I would classify as like, holding my quote fingers up, the commander. That, he's hard, but he's fair. And he's expected to lead by example. He's expected to make all the difficult decisions. He does what they call transactional leadership. He sets goals, he defines expectations, it's done with what they call contingent reward systems, where he's going to reward effort, and it could be anything, just a pat on the shoulder. He's going to recognize good performance, unfortunately, the other half of his job is to do what they call management by expectation. Management by exception. I got a little cross verbiage there. But his job is to maintain the status quo and basically keep people in line. and he will only intervene when a subordinate does not meet expectations. And that means initiating negative feedback and corrective act, which obviously is punishment to improve that performance. So you're going to find that it's like there's always going to be the good leader who can lead lots of people that's going to get people through things. Then you're going to find that bad leader who's mostly just a narcissist more than anything else, and he is going to lead people through things, and he could very well be very successful in his position as a leader, but it's likely through violence and intimidation, and the good people will flee and the bad people will stay, and those bad people will stay around him as long as they can, because there's the possibility that something that they want in life is being fed versus trying to be a good person, which is, the end goal of survival. I don't think anybody ever said, I wanted to survive the apocalypse by being a really bad person.
I do have to say there are probably people out there with that mentality. I've ran into some people that said, I want to be this big scary guy during the apocalypse because no one will mess with me and no one will get out of line. And I've had this conversation with people before, and I've told these people, I was like, you realize that's just going to make everybody turn against you, right? Like, there's nothing protecting you at that point. You can't call 911. There's no police. You're as good as dead if you start pissing off whatever community you're involved with.
Some of the scariest people I ever met in the prison system, working in the prison system over them 20 years, were the people that were the most, you look at him, you go, hey, what's he running? He's not running anything but his mouth. They probably take his commissary at night. There was a little old guy. He wasn't maybe 5'2", maybe 135 pounds. We used to call him Murder Man because he had stabbed, I don't know how many people in his time that he had been in prison. And you didn't take anything from him, and he didn't take anything from anybody walking on 2 feet. And that's the kind of guy right there that they feared what he would do, and he had shown them in the past. But that's not the kind of leadership skills that you're looking for. But yeah, fear and intimidation does work to some extent, but it doesn't work for very long. But I was the kind of leader that didn't lead because I wanted to. I really didn't want to get to a leadership position when I came to work in the prison system. I really wanted to just have a job. I didn't really want to go up the ladder, but as I went up the ladder a little bit further, I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. Oh, this is so bad. And then I kind of got shoved into it. That's where I was for years. So, yeah, there's a lot of people who are going to be reluctant leaders out there that just find out that, I'm going to have to do something. Somebody's got to do something here. Somebody's got to lead these people. That's a scary proposition too, because if you have no skills doing this, even if you might be good at it, you don't know you're good at it. It's kind of like walking down on a limb and saw it off behind you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and most apprehensive leaders, like people who just, hey, that guy's got his stuff together, we're going to follow him, and now that person will sense that other people are going to be depending on him for something, for anything. It could be anything in life, really. But now this apprehensive leader, he's going to be that person that's, in the beginning, he's going to be just putting out all sorts of fires until he figures out the lay of the land, the way things work, and then at that point, they might just say, hey guys, listen, this is too much. I'm just trying to breathe here, and I can't take this anymore. So it is very situational.
Well, I think one good thing that's going to make a good leader in these apocalyptic scenarios is a knowledgeable leader. Someone who has the power to do things. They're going to want to follow this guy, and they're going to want to keep him alive based on the knowledge that he possesses. So again, being this big, scary, bad guy that's keeping everybody in line, I don't think is going to work. I think it's going to be that guy that knows everything, that could teach people, and has that valuable knowledge that's keeping everybody alive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does to an extent, but that's kind of skills. There's a thing called situational leadership, and it's based on competence level versus motivation level. There's a lot to be said for people that are motivated, that have high levels of confidence and willingness to get a task done. A very quick story. 29 Palms, California, combined arm exercise. Marines are down there on the ground waiting to be signaled to move because machine gun fire is covering the targets for them. This is basic military doctrine. So in order to get them to shift fire so that, to the right, so that the Marines can move it up on the left, there's got to be some kind of signal. Well, the platoon sergeant was doing his job that day, and I watched this young staff sergeant pick up the flag and start running right towards the edge of the bullets with this giant flag. And the machine gunners on Machine Gunner Hill saw this and immediately started shifting their fire to the right in front of that guy, and everybody else saw that, so they started moving behind him. Now, why do I bring this story up? It's simple. People will follow those that are motivated, confident, and have the willingness to accomplish a task or mission. They will not follow people that want to sit in a chair and be a king and say, "Kiss my ring." So motivational level is always stronger in leaders than actual competence is, because competence is based off of skill. We always hear about like, you're going to build your mag, and what are you looking for? Well, we want to find a doctor. We want to find a guy who's good at security. We want to find a guy who knows how to cook and can, and another guy who's a carpenter. These are all these skills that we hear about all the time, but no one ever says we want to find a guy who really knows how to lead people. And that's because everything is skill-based and not motivational-based. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. I never once thought, like, as I'm building my circle, hey, I need a leader. That's not something that goes through my head. And I always see these people online, though, they're always kind of saying, hey, where can I hook up with other preppers? And, where do I go online to find like-minded people in my area who are doing this? And they're not admitting it in the moment, but I wonder if that's why. I wonder if they're looking for that sense of leadership.
Well, I believe that they are. But I also believe that they're scared of that, because there's the stereotype of, OPSEC and people knowing where your stuff is, and, things like that. But what they are looking for a community. What they're really looking for is they're looking for the 5 other families they're in their cul-de-sac to think exactly the way that they do, and that just doesn't happen.
Makes a lot of sense. Al, are you still with us? You've been kind of quiet for a while.
Okay. Well, I was just fixing to say, when he said the 5 other families in their cul-de-sac that think the same way, I am blessed. I live here in Arkansas, where a lot of people here are preppers and have a prepper mindset. And no, not all of us in the same cul-de-sac think the same way, but there is a very similar mindset in this general area that I live in. But my God, after I get to talking to other preppers in other areas, and they tell me how they live in an area that's got many liberal leaning people in that area and stuff, I'm like, my gosh, you'd like to belong to a community, I know. And I mean, we kind of do here. A lot of us get along. A lot of us think the same way around where I'm at. I'm blessed like that. But you're right. It's hard to find a group of people. And I think there's a lot of people that are looking to be led. They're not looking to lead themselves. They're looking to, like, show me where to go. And yeah, people are looking for something to fall behind, How's that whole thing go? Run it up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes it. It's that kind of thing. They want somebody that they can follow instead of actually going out and maybe having to lead themselves.
Well, it's difficult to do anything in a community because, like I said, some people are scared, but the other side of that too is a lot of people are assuming that they have to lead themselves through these situations. And which is rightfully so. Like you said, you plan on being the head honcho if something goes down in your family. That's kind of your job. But we never think outside of that. We never think about, like, okay, so what's outside of me, and how can I be friends with this other family? That's, I've been trying to build that for a couple years now, and some of it's working, but for the most part, it's still very scattered. And then hell, just finding other groups in your area. I've got to drive, Jesus, I want to say at least an hour south to get anything close to a group, and maybe 3 hours north to find anybody even interested in the idea of a mag. It's a little tricky. I mean, it's not impossible, but I think it's all about how much you put yourself out there in order to find people, and then at that point, decisions have to be made, and you may not like how those pan out. You might start your own mag, and then you fall for the whole let's make it a democracy thing, and next thing you know, you've been voted down to nothing, and they've got you on guard for the foreseeable future, and that's not where you envisioned yourself.
There is one thing I want to bring up. Quick story for you about putting yourself out there. There are a good bit of preppers in my area, and I'm starting to discover more and more, and I don't really put out there what I'm doing. They start talking to me about prepper stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, sure, that's cool, man. That's cool that you do that. Like, I don't do that, but it's cool you do. I just kind of play stupid. But there is a gentleman in my area that is actively trying to recruit people. And he's putting it out there on social media. He's sharing it. He's sharing what he's doing with everybody. And, literally strangers on the street, he's trying to bring in and pull in. And, of course, he wants to be that leader guy. He wants to be top dog in this role. And he's somebody I would never mess with, just for the idea that you're putting too much out there. You're not maintaining OPSEC. You're not keeping anything quiet. You're actively going out and telling strangers about this. So that, as far as being a leader and putting yourself out there, this has bad juju written all over it.
Yeah, yeah. I think and you can only make assumptions, but I think the first question would be why is he doing it? That would be the first question, because like I said, with the different types of leaders, normally the bad ones, they're basically narcissists. They want everything for a narcissist is about them, and they will do anything in their power to surround them with people that make everything about them. You see what I'm saying? So it's I'd probably stay away from the guy.
Oh no, absolutely, and I did pick that up a lot when these conversations were being had. Not only am I a stranger that he doesn't know, but there was a lot of like me, I, me within the conversation. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from this one.
The hot air bags, they kind of, it's always about them, and they're always talking about something. And if you got something, they've got three of it. And those kind of people, I know you're talking about. And we have people like that in the local area around here too. So you have to kind of watch those people. You can't align yourself with them. Matter of fact, I don't even like to associate with them. I like to disassociate myself with them. But we don't advertise that we're preppers or anything like that, or we don't advertise that we know it. But the community of people that we have around here, we talk amongst ourselves. But there's a lot of OPSEC too amongst ourselves here too. But if something was to bad happen, yeah, we'd be able to help each other.
Are you looking to save money on prepper supplies? You should be taking advantage of multiple deals that I've set up with several different vendors. I'll leave a link below. Take a look at that. Dig around. If you need something, there it is.
What would be big red flags to say, not this guy?
Most leaders don't really talk about what they've done or what they're capable of. They're normally humble people. When somebody starts coming in telling you about, I've done this and I've done that, and I believe this, and they're kind of treating it like a job interview. That's kind of a red flag in this particular scenario, because they have to be. A leader is selfless. There's a guy out there. I'm trying to remember. I think his name is Simon Sinek. If you ever had a chance to listen to him on YouTube, incredibly intelligent. Spent a lot of time analyzing the special forces and spending time with them and trying to figure out what made them click. Okay. He wrote a book that's got a title in it called Leaders Eat Last. No, I don't have a kickback. I'm just telling you, it's a good source of information for leadership. It's something you learn in the military up front. When the chow, you're out in the field, right? And you've been doing whatever you're doing, and the chow truck shows up and the cooks get everything set up. The very first people that go to the front of that line are the privates, the guys at the lowest rank. And then they go right up through that length. They get in line just like that, E1, E2, E3, all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. all the NCOs and staff NCOs, they're moving towards the back of the line, and you're talking a company of about 160 Marines. And then at the very end of that, there's the platoon commanders and the company commanders. And the company commander is going to eat last. And you know what? If they didn't bring enough chow, those guys don't eat. And the reason is because they expect these guys to do their jobs, but they expect to be treated with respect and be given the tools that they need to perform those jobs, right? And one of those is food and energy. You know what I'm saying? And if you think about it, it's kind of like the exact opposite. If you go back to the days of ancient, not even old, but ancient, where the king comes to the battlefield and he's got his giant tent and shiny armor and all these squires running all over the place helping him out, and a bathtub and a desk, but you've got this private who just killed 75, 80 guys with his bare hands, and you're eating better than he does. That's humility. I would just focus on, if you're vetting somebody to be a leader in an apocalyptic situation, I would take a very hard look and do as much background, because someone might know him from the town. If he's just some rogue who came in and he just happens to, he's got a rifle and he's got this and he looks fit and strong and smart and he speaks intelligent, that doesn't mean anything. Put him to work. Put him to work cleaning the shitters. You know what I'm saying? Put him to work building fences. Put him to work chopping wood, and let him do that and watch him, and then think about putting him in a leadership position.
Right. That in itself makes a lot of sense. And I mean, one thing I've learned, and I wasn't in the military, was in a paramilitary academy, but not in the military. But some of the best bosses I had just in the private sector would work right beside you. Like, it was really interesting when I'd be working on a job and I had, the owner of the company come out and swing a sledgehammer next to me, knowing that they had a bunch of peons to do that for them, but they still came out and participated. It was a rarity we didn't see often, but it did make for great leadership, right? To see the bosses coming out and working just as hard as you are. So that would be something I would be looking for within a leader is, who's going to get down and dirty with us? Who's going to be out here, like you said, scrubbing the toilets, etc. Who's that guy going to be? That's what I'd be looking for.
Yeah.
I agree with you. One of the worst things you could ever do in the prison system was to actually feed chow. And chow was one of my favorite things to do. And it was one of the dirtiest, nastiest jobs you'd ever have. But I always would take the new officers that worked for me and those that were new to my shift and stuff, and I would go down and feed chow with them. Like, none of the other captains feed chow. Why do you? I said, because I want you to do it right. And if you watch me do it right, then you'll do it right. And then when I come here every day, I'll see you do it right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did,
Yeah, that's leadership by example. That actually follows something called PESOs: prepare, explain, show, observe, supervise. It's the basis for all educational leadership.
I was doing something right. I just didn't know how I was doing it.
It doesn't matter. See, that's the magical thing. Listen, man, this all comes back down to human nature. If you're looking somebody dead in the eye, you can look at them and you can tell, not if they're a bad person or not if they're going to be a good leader, but if they're shifty, if they're questionable, if they have a problem. We pick up on these things. We don't have to be trained body language analysts. You know what I'm saying? Human beings can pick up on these things. I mean, unless the guy's a professional liar, which I'm sure you saw 1,000 of those, Al. But
yes.
I mean, and like I said, it's not like they're not all. I mean, unless you take all the professional liars and put them in a place called a prison, you're not going to see a professional liar very often.
No, and to be honest with you, when you can gain the respect of those that are incarcerated and those that work for you that are there, you've done something. And I like to pride myself on that I learned people and I learned to command people well enough that what I was doing, that I could do both sides of the fence. So I was all right there. But this I didn't come from a military background. So let me ask you just a question real quick. When you're in the military, I know to a certain degree they want to breed leaders. They want leaders. Do they do they take you through certain training where they kind of cull those that are natural leaders from others, or is that something where you just kind of gravitate towards it? I never really understood that part, how they get the leadership that they pick out of the ranks.
Yeah. Well, you know, it things change all the time. You know, I catch myself all the time saying the old core, and then remember that the guys that came from before me said the old core, and you don't know what you're talking about, son, and stuff like that. You know, there's always going to be that. But the, do they have a process? They have an educational process that is actually more focused on maintaining the institution than training leaders. Um, Most of the leaders in the Marine Corps that are good leaders, because they're all leaders. Once you become a non-commissioned officer, which is an E4 or above in the Marine Corps, then you are expected to lead, no question. The guardrails are off. You're going to be put in a position of leadership, and you're going to either do good or you're going to do bad. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of people in the Marine Corps, so it's not like, well, you're not that great, man, so we're going to put you over here. That's a rarity, and you're going to basically be in a position where you either learn how to do this right, or your life is going to suck because no one's going to like you, and no one's going to listen to you, which is what's more important. The leadership process in the Marine Corps is more based on the leaders that are above you, who take you under their wing and give you, like I was talking about before. They actually, it's they give you, they set the rules. They give you those responsibilities, and they're very specific in the tasks that they give you. Okay. And so that they can set clear goals, and they define those expectations, and then they follow up later to see if it was done to their standard. Unfortunately, I wish that there was, I went through several staff academies that were supposed to teach me how to be a good leader in the Marine Corps. But honestly, they didn't change me one little bit. They just taught me more about how the institution is ran more than anything else. Sorry if I let you down on that one.
No, I got what I wanted out of it. I wasn't sure. I didn't have an understanding for that, but I do now.
Yeah, I got kind of lost there in the ether of that conversation. So I did pick up the tail end of it, though, saying you broke the system. Was that what you stated?
No, I didn't break the system. I think the easiest way to say it is that they have lots of educational programs that they'll tag the word leader or leadership on. But it's the Marines that are above you that bring you into the fold, and set clear goals and define expectations for you, so that you can do the same thing for those Marines that are below you. And then obviously supervise.
Cool, Prepper. If you want to go ahead and plug your stuff so our listeners know where to find you, how to get a hold of you, things like that.
Sure, I'd love to. If you're looking for us or me or the group itself, it actually is a community. You can find us in two different places, but the best place to go is just to go to localprepper.net. And right on that front page, you can scroll through all the different platforms that we're on. We pretty much live out on the Discord platform. And like I said, scroll down there, take 5 minutes, take a minute to create a profile, join the community, get, and you'll get most of the information that we're passing out on that.
Gotcha. Very, very cool. And Al, you want to go ahead and plug your stuff before we're out of here?
Yeah, you can find me now pretty much exclusively. Anything I'm going to do from now on is going to be on Clapper. I'm getting off the TikTok. So big_daddy_prep. And basically the Big Daddy Al podcast, Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we'll be going to a video format for long, but we'll talk about that later on.
Very, very cool. So with the last few minutes we got left here, guys, I did want to get, both thoughts on this before we're out of here. And, I mean, it's kind of the theme of the whole show tonight, this whole apocalyptic leadership. Do you guys have your own leaders? Are you your own leaders? What is your plan in the apocalypse?
Can't tell you. That's OPSEC.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, right now it's just me and the girlfriend and the family. We do have a plan. No one is actually a defined leader in that plan, but I have a feeling that someone will take over pretty quickly while everybody else pickers.
I bet that guy is local prepper. That's all I'm saying.
No comment.
I would be glad not to be the leader. I would be glad not to be, but if need be, I would be. But I'd like to pass it down to a younger generation one day because, I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore. And I'd like somebody younger that I could teach. So I got one I'm working on. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Al, I'm with you, Al. I think that everybody every man at some point deserves two things: a rocking chair and a rocket launcher.
You're right.
Nice.
I agree with you 100%.
So, guys, I got one more thing I want to say before we end this and thoughts on it. I kind of feel that in most circumstances, the alphas are just going to take over.
Yeah, I think they will, or even worse, what'll happen is somebody who is pretending to be an alpha will take over, and then people will slowly figure out that they're just not a great person.
Gotcha. And on that note, guys, we're out of here. We will see you on next week's episode.